The forest was alive with whispers, a wind that carried secrets older than the kingdom itself. Branches reached like crooked fingers, scratching the misty sky. Somewhere deep within, creatures that belonged neither to man nor beast prowled silently. Few dared to enter this place, and even fewer returned. But the Alpha moved through it as though the trees themselves bowed before him. He was tall, his presence commanding, with eyes like amber fire. His cloak, dark as the night itself, trailed behind him, brushing the frost-covered leaves. Men in the nearby villages whispered of him as a shadow who ruled both the forest and the pack that carried his mark. The crescent-shaped scar etched into his skin, a mark that spoke of power and pain, of a past bound by curses. No one knew where he came from, and he preferred it that way. Fear was easier than curiosity. Yet on this particular night, the Alpha's steps faltered. A cry carried on the wind, a child's voice, small but unafraid, calling out. He paused, senses sharp. Children rarely dared wander near his forest. He moved silently toward the sound, the mist curling around his boots. Through the fog, he saw her. A little girl, no more than 7, standing in the moonlight. Her hair was a tangle of brown waves, her dress simple and worn, but her eyes held a courage that made him uneasy. She stared at him directly, not with fear, but with a strange recognition. "Hi, sir," she said, her voice clear against the whispering wind. "My mother has a mark just like yours." The Alpha froze. The words felt like a knife to his chest. He had hidden the mark for years. A secret no one was supposed to know. It was a crescent-shaped scar, burned into his shoulder by the gods themselves as punishment for sins he could barely remember. That anyone would speak of it, even a child, was impossible. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low, careful. "My mother," the girl repeated. "She has a mark. Right here." She lifted her sleeve, revealing a faint crescent on her arm. "Just like yours." She said it came from the forest. She said it was from someone who saved her. The Alpha's heart tightened. Memories long buried stirred memories of a woman, soft and fierce, with eyes full of sorrow and hope. A healer, the only woman who had ever touched his heart without fear. She had been taken from him by fate, leaving only whispers and regrets behind. And now, a child, her child, stood before him. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "The forest is not safe for little girls." "I'm not afraid," she said simply. "My mother told me stories. She said the forest hides things, but it also protects those it chooses. She said, if someone like you is here, it is for a reason." The Alpha knelt, careful not to frighten her. His gaze studied the crescent mark on her arm. It was faint, almost too light to see, but unmistakable. The same mark he bore, a mark he had sworn would never touch another living soul. "Who is your mother?" he asked. The girl hesitated. "Her name is Leora," she whispered. She used to heal people in our village. But then, she disappeared. She said she had to go to the forest. She said someone was coming, someone who would protect us." The Alpha's hands clenched. Leora. He had remembered her face countless times in dreams that left him hollow and restless. And now, her voice, her legacy, lingered in this child. Before he could respond, a howl echoed through the trees, a deep, resonant sound that made the forest tremble. The girl flinched slightly, but her hand did not leave her mark. "That's nothing," he said quickly, masking the tension in his voice. "Come with me. You should not be alone here." The child nodded, trusting him in a way he had not expected. Together, they moved through the forest, his steps sure, hers small but steady. The mist curled around them like fingers, and shadows seemed to twist at the edge of their vision. As they walked, she spoke quietly. My mother said, the mark is a gift, that it chooses the people it touches, that it connects them, somehow. He did not answer. He could not. The mark had been a burden, a reminder of mistakes and pain, of promises he had broken, and blood spilled. Yet hearing her speak of it as a gift stirred something dangerous inside him. Hope. When they reached the edge of the forest, the Alpha's stronghold appeared ancient stone walls overgrown with ivy, towers that seemed to touch the clouds, and a gate that had not seen visitors for years. He hesitated, unsure if he should allow her inside. But the child's gaze, unwavering and bright, made the decision for him. Inside, the fortress was cold and silent. Fires burned in scattered hearths, casting flickering shadows across the walls. The Alpha led her to a small chamber, simple yet warm. He set down a blanket for her, and she looked around with awe, as though the shadows themselves whispered secrets she could understand. Stay here, he said. I will find food and water. The girl shook her head. I want to see your mark, she said softly. I want to know why it looks like mine. My mother said it is important. The Alpha froze. No one had ever asked to see it. The weight of his past pressed down on him, but something in her trust, innocent and pure, made him hesitate. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he rolled up his sleeve. The crescent mark gleamed faintly in the firelight. It was small, but intricate. A scar that burned with a story he had tried to forget. The girl's eyes widened. It's the same, she whispered. Just like my mother said. A silence fell. The forest outside groaned with the wind, and somewhere, unseen, a branch snapped. The Alpha's instincts tensed. He had taught himself to trust nothing and no one. But this child, she was different. She held a part of a past he could not escape. Suddenly, the girl reached out and touched the mark on his arm. Her fingers were small, gentle, and unafraid. A shiver ran through him, not fear, but recognition, something older than memory. You're real, she said. The stories are real. You saved her, didn't you? The Alpha's throat tightened. He opened his mouth, but no words came. How could he tell her that her mother had been caught in a curse he could not undo, that he had failed them both? Before he could respond, the air shifted. A chill swept through the room, unnatural and sudden. The fire flickered and dimmed. Shadows gathered in the corners, coiling like living things. The girl took a small step back, eyes wide. What is that? She asked, voice trembling. The Alpha's eyes narrowed. He had felt this before the presence of something ancient, something that knew him, something that had been waiting. The mark on the girl's arm pulsed faintly, almost as though it recognized the approaching danger. They are coming, he whispered. Something is coming for you. For her. The child's hand found his again, tight and trusting. Then, we will face it. Together, she said, with a courage that made his chest ache. The forest outside groaned, the wind carrying a voice that was both lament and warning. The Alpha stood, towering and alert. For the first time in decades, he felt a fear that was not his own but one he would fight to protect. The little girl's eyes met his, and in them, he saw the reflection of everything he had lost and everything he might save. The mark they shared was more than a scar, it was a connection, a promise, and a warning. And then, from the depths of the forest, a shadow moved. A dark shape, watching, waiting, drawn to the bond that had been awakened. The wind carried its whisper, faint but unmistakable. A warning, a threat, a call that could not be ignored. The Alpha knew the forest had chosen them, but he did not know if they were ready for what was coming. Cliffhanger. The little girl's mark glowed faintly in the firelight, pulsing like a heartbeat. Outside, the forest trembled. Something ancient had noticed the bond, and it was moving closer. The Alpha's shadow stretched across the chamber, and for the first time in years, he did not know if he could protect them both. The morning light filtered through the narrow windows of the Alpha's stronghold, pale and hesitant, as though the sun itself feared the shadows within. The little girl sat quietly on the blanket, her small hands clasped around her knees, eyes wide as she watched the Alpha move through the chamber. He had not slept, and his usual calm was fractured by a storm of thoughts. He had called her Leora's daughter in his mind, though her name was still unknown. Every glance at her brought a memory he had tried to lock away, a memory of a woman who had healed wounds, both physical and emotional, and who had left his life too soon. The crescent mark on the girl's arm pulsed faintly, as if sensing the storm of emotions swirling through the Alpha himself. "I need to know everything," the girl said suddenly, breaking the tense silence. "My mother said, you knew something. She said, you saved her." The Alpha paused, the words hitting him harder than any blade could. To speak of Leora now was to reopen wounds he had sealed for decades. Yet the child's trust, so unguarded and absolute, demanded honesty. "My name is Kaelin," he said slowly, kneeling before her so that his eyes met hers. "And I did know your mother. Long ago. She was brave. And kind. More than I deserved." The girl's eyes shimmered with curiosity and hope. "Then, can you tell me why she has a mark like yours?" Kaelin hesitated. The mark was more than a scar. It was a curse and a legacy. It had been given to him by forces he barely understood, binding him to the forest, to power, and to choices he had once made. But the girl, she deserved truth. "The mark is old," he said finally. "It chooses the blood it touches. It is both a protection and a warning. Your mother, she bore it because her fate was tied to mine. And now, yours is too." The little girl's lips parted in surprise, but she did not speak. Her gaze fell to the floor, fingers tracing the faint crescent on her arm. "Does that mean I am like her?" Kaelin's heart tightened. She was not just like her mother. She was the continuation of everything he had lost, a living thread connecting the past to the present. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, heavier than any battle he had fought. "Yes," he said quietly, "but it also means danger follows you. There are those who would seek the mark, and they do not care for innocence." A sudden rustle from the forest outside made them both tense. Kaelin rose, moving toward the window, eyes narrowing as he scanned the mist-shrouded woods. He had sensed the presence last night. The shadow that lingered, waiting. It had not left. "They are watching," he said, his voice low and serious. The girl's small hand gripped his sleeve. "Who? What are they?" Kaelin shook his head. "I do not yet know. But you must trust me. You are safe inside these walls. For now." For hours, he tried to teach her how to move quietly, to listen to the forest, to sense the energy that flowed through the trees and the wind. The girl absorbed everything, her eyes wide with wonder and determination. She asked questions about the mark, about her mother, about the forest itself. Kaelin answered carefully, revealing only what she needed to know, enough to prepare her, not enough to frighten her. By evening, the tension in the stronghold grew thick. Kaelin had sensed movements beyond the walls, shapes that slipped between shadows, eyes that gleamed with a hunger he recognized all too well. The curse that had marked his life was stirring, drawn to the girl's presence, to the echo of her mother's power. He decided it was time to reveal more. He took the girl to the edge of the forest, where the trees grew dense and the air seemed charged with magic. The wind carried whispers, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. "This forest," Kaelin began, "is alive. It watches, it remembers. The mark on your arm, it connects you to it. And through you, It remembers your mother. Quote. The girl looked up at him, eyes wide with awe. Yes, he said. But it is dangerous. The forest gives power, but it also tests those it chooses, and some things do not wish to be found. A rustle in the shadows made Kalen stiffen. From the corner of his eye, he saw a figure, a dark presence that moved with unnatural grace. It lingered at the edge of sight, watching, waiting. He did not name it, but he knew its purpose: to claim the mark, to feed on the bond between blood, forest, and destiny. You must not be afraid, Kalen said, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. Fear will make them stronger. Courage can guide you. The girl nodded, but he could feel her tremble. Her innocence was powerful, yes, but it was also fragile. Protecting her would demand every ounce of strength he had, and more. As night fell, Kalen led her back to the stronghold. He lit the hearths, casting warm light across the stone walls, but the shadows remained deep and restless. He could feel the forest pressing against the fortress, the unseen eyes of something ancient and patient. Sleep now, he said, settling her under the blanket. I will watch. The girl's eyes closed slowly, and for a moment, Kalen allowed himself to breathe. But the weight of the past and the danger of the present did not leave him. He walked to the highest tower, where the wind howled through broken battlements. Kalen remembered Leora, the healer who had touched his life and vanished into legend. Her sacrifice, her courage, had created the bond he now protected. And her daughter, the girl, her child, carried that same spirit. She was hope incarnate, fragile yet unyielding, and she reminded him of what he had lost and what he might still save. Suddenly, a sound from below made him tense. A shadow moved across the courtyard. Not a natural animal or a human visitor, but something darker, drawn to the mark that pulsed faintly on the girl's arm. It paused at the edge of the firelight, waiting, watching. Kalen's eyes narrowed. He knew this presence. It was the echo of the curse that had haunted his family for generations. A creature born from darkness and regret, now drawn to the child's life force. Kalen descended the spiral stairs, silent as the wind, moving toward the courtyard. The shadow did not flee. It knew he was coming, and it seemed to smile in a way that chilled his blood. You should not have come here, Kalen said, his voice low and steady, though his heart raced. This child is protected. You will not touch her. The shadow shifted, coiling around itself, almost laughing. It was neither human nor beast, a creature of rage and hunger, bound to the curse that had marked his own past. Kalen's instincts told him that fighting it now would be dangerous. It was clever, patient, and powerful, but he could not leave it to touch the girl. He reached the balcony and looked down at the courtyard. The shadow had vanished as suddenly as it appeared, leaving only a faint ripple in the night air, like smoke blown by the wind. Kalen exhaled slowly, but the tension remained. Returning to the girl, he found her sitting up, eyes wide, watching the flickering shadows. Did it come for me? She whispered. Kalen knelt beside her. It was curious, he said, but you are protected. As long as I stand, nothing can harm you. The girl's small hand found his again. Then we will face it. Together, she said, her voice firm, fearless in its simplicity. Kalen's chest tightened. He had spent years alone, guarding the forest, carrying the weight of a curse and a lineage of regret. And now, this child, so small and innocent, had awakened something inside him that he thought had died long ago. A sense of purpose, a chance at redemption, and a spark of hope he did not fully understand. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying secrets of the past, warnings of the future, and promises of a destiny tied to the bond between the alpha and the child. The forest watched, waiting, as the night deepened, and something ancient stirred in response to the awakening connection. Cliffhanger. The little girl stirred in her sleep, murmuring a name Kaelin did not recognize. The crescent mark on her arm pulsed brighter than before, glowing faintly in the dark. And from deep within the forest, the shadow returned larger, closer, its eyes fixed on the bond it could not yet claim. Kaelin knew this was only the beginning. The past and future had collided, and the forest had chosen its next chapter. The forest had changed. Where once the wind whispered softly through the trees, now it carried an edge of danger, as if the trees themselves were warning of a power stirring. Shadows deepened, curling across the ground in shapes that seemed alive. Even the animals, normally curious and cautious, had vanished from the paths. Kaelin stood at the edge of the stronghold, his gaze fixed on the dense forest. The little girl, who had begun to call him Sir, with the innocence only a child could maintain, clung to his side. Her small hand held his tightly, as if drawing strength from him, but Kaelin knew that soon, it might be her own courage that would guide them both. "The forest is restless," he said quietly. "It knows something is coming. Something old and dangerous." The girl tilted her head. "Do you think it's the shadow?" Kaelin's jaw tightened. "It is more than the shadow. The curse that has haunted my bloodline is waking. It has been patient, waiting for a moment like this. And now, it senses the mark. Your mark." The child's eyes widened. "My mark? What does it mean?" Kaelin crouched to meet her gaze. "The mark connects you to your mother and to me. It carries both protection and power. But it also carries danger. Those who know its secret would seek it, and they do not care who gets hurt." The girl's small hands clenched together. "Then we have to stop it, don't we?" Kaelin gave her a small, sad smile. "We must survive it first. Then, perhaps, we can end it." Night fell quickly, darker than usual, as if the forest itself swallowed the light. Kaelin led the girl into the heart of the woods, a place where the trees grew so close together that sunlight never touched the ground. The air was thick, filled with the scent of damp earth and something older, something that spoke of magic, loss, and longing. "This place," Kaelin whispered, "is where the curse began. Long ago, my ancestors made a pact with forces beyond our understanding. The mark was the result. It chose those who could carry it, and sometimes, it chooses twice in one bloodline." The girl looked up at him, fear and curiosity fighting in her expression. "Does that mean I was chosen?" "Yes," Kaelin said simply. "And that means you are part of something far bigger than yourself. Something that can either protect the forest or destroy it." As they moved deeper, the forest seemed to respond to their presence. Shadows shifted, branches bent unnaturally, and the wind carried whispers that only Kaelin could understand. He stopped suddenly, sensing movement. From the corner of his eye, a shadow detached itself from the trees. A figure, dark and coiled, its eyes glinting like molten silver. The girl gasped, clutching his cloak. "Sir, what is that?" Kaelin placed himself between her and the shadow. "It is the curse, or what remains of it. It is not alive in the way we are, but it thinks, it watches, and it hunts. It will not leave until it knows. The mark is gone, or claimed." The shadow lunged forward, faster than a living creature could move. Kaelin reacted instinctively, drawing his blade and striking with precision. The shadow recoiled, hissing like smoke escaping a fire. It was no ordinary enemy. It moved through the forest as if the ground itself aided it, twisting reality around its form. "Keep close," Kaelin said. "Do not let go." The girl nodded, her small hand gripping his even tighter. Her courage surprised him. She did not scream, did not falter. She seemed almost to sense the rhythm of the forest, the pulse of the mark, as if she could feel the power stirring beneath her skin. They ran through the winding paths, Kaelin striking at the shadow when it came too close. The trees bent around them, guiding them deeper into the heart of the forest, toward an ancient altar carved into the roots of an enormous oak. This altar had been the place where Kaelin's ancestors had first received the mark, and where he had sealed part of the curse long ago. "This is where it begins," he said, panting. "We must face it here. Together." The girl's eyes flicked to the altar. "Will it hurt me?" Kaelin knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Only if you let it. But you are stronger than you think. Your mother gave you courage. And the mark, it will guide you." As they approached the altar, the shadow coalesced into a more solid form. Its shape was humanoid, yet not fully human. Smoke and darkness clung to it, and its eyes glimmered with a hunger that made Kaelin's stomach churn. "You cannot hide from me," the shadow whispered, its voice a blend of every sound in the forest. "The mark belongs to me. The child belongs to me." Kaelin drew himself up, stepping forward to shield the girl. "No," he said firmly. "You will not touch her. The bond is stronger than your hunger. You do not understand the strength of blood, or of trust. Understand. You will not understand." The shadow lunged again, and the ground around them cracked with its arrival. Kaelin struck, but the creature seemed to absorb the energy of his blows, feeding off his anger and fear. The girl's hand glowed faintly, the crescent on her arm pulsing with light. Kaelin realized then that her mark was awakening, responding to the danger. "Hold my hand," he shouted. "Feel the pulse. Let it guide you." The girl did, and a warmth spread through Kaelin's arm, a soft but undeniable force that pushed the shadow back. Light radiated from her mark, faint at first, then stronger, illuminating the dark forest. The shadow hissed and recoiled, unable to withstand the connection between the alpha and the child. Kaelin felt something shift inside him. All the fear, regret, and sorrow he had carried for decades seemed to melt into a singular focus, protecting her. He realized that the curse had never been only about punishment. It had been a test, a way to teach strength, trust, and redemption. The shadow reeled, then lunged one final time. Kaelin struck with precision, driving it into the altar, where ancient runes glowed faintly beneath the stone. A burst of energy exploded, and the shadow shrieked, dissolving into smoke that swirled around the trees. For a moment, silence fell, heavy and complete. The girl clung to Kaelin, her small body shaking. "Did we stop it?" Kaelin held her close. "Not entirely," he said. "It is weakened, yes, but the curse, it never dies completely. It waits, and it watches. We have only begun to understand it." She looked up at him with eyes full of awe. "Then, I want to help. I want to fight it with you." Kaelin's heart ached. She was so small, yet so brave. She reminded him of Leora, her mother, and of the hope he had once believed lost. "You will help," he said gently, "but only as long as I am with you. You are not alone, and you never will be." As they made their way back to the stronghold, Kaelin realized something profound. The curse had awakened, yes, but it had also awakened something within him. Something he had thought dead. The willingness to fight not for fear, but for love, trust, and redemption. The forest, which had seemed threatening and cold, now hummed softly around them, as though acknowledging the bond between the alpha and the child. Their steps were careful, measured, yet their connection strengthened with each heartbeat. Back in the chamber, Kaelin lit the fires and watched the girl settle onto her blanket. She was quiet now, exhaustion softening her features, yet her mark still glowed faintly in the firelight. "You are stronger than you know," he said softly. And you have more courage than anyone I have ever met." She smiled sleepily. "I learned it from my mother. And from you, sir." Kalen felt a weight lift slightly from his chest. The shadow was gone. For now. But the mark had awakened something new. A chance for them both to confront the past, face the curse, and perhaps find redemption together. Yet as he stood by the window, looking out at the dark forest, Kalen knew that the trials were far from over. The curse had been only the beginning. There were powers far older, deeper, and darker than even he could imagine, watching them, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Cliffhanger. Outside, the wind carried a new sound. A whisper, almost a voice, calling the child's name. The crescent mark on her arm pulsed brighter, almost like a heartbeat, and Kalen realized that the curse had more to reveal. Something ancient and unseen had awakened completely, and the forest itself seemed to tremble with anticipation. Their greatest challenge was yet to come. The night was still, but the air was heavy with expectation. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if even the trees knew that the end of the trial had come. Kalen stood at the edge of the ancient altar, the little girl beside him. Her small hand held his tightly, but he could feel the tremor of power beneath her skin, the pulse of the crescent mark that had awakened in the previous nights. "This is where it ends," Kalen whispered. "We face the curse here, together." The girl nodded, her eyes wide but steady. "I am ready, sir. I will not let it hurt anyone again." Kalen placed his hand on her shoulder, drawing strength from her courage. "Remember what I taught you. Trust in the mark, trust in yourself, and trust in me. Nothing else matters." The shadows began to gather, curling through the roots and branches of the forest like black smoke. The air grew thick, heavy with the weight of something ancient. The shadow from before returned, larger now, more solid, its eyes like burning coals. It was no longer merely a presence, it was a force, born from centuries of anger, fear, and failed curses. "You cannot stop me," it hissed, its voice echoing through the forest. "The child carries the mark, and the mark belongs to me." Kalen stepped in front of her. "No," he said firmly. "The mark belongs to her, and I will not let you take it." The shadow lunged. Kalen met it with his blade, striking true, but the creature moved with unnatural speed, twisting through the air like smoke. Its scream was filled with rage, a sound that made the trees tremble. Yet the girl's hand glowed faintly, the mark on her arm pulsing with a steady, bright light that pushed the darkness back. Kalen realized then what he had not fully understood before. The child's courage, her trust, and her connection to the mark were the key. The shadow drew power from fear, but she had none. Only calm, only focus, only hope. "Look at me," Kalen shouted. "Focus on your mark. You are stronger than it." The girl raised her small hand, palm open, and the crescent glowed brighter, a light that seemed to flow from the altar itself. The shadow recoiled, hissing, twisting, its form beginning to unravel. "You are not alone," Kalen said, feeling a warmth spread through his own mark. "We are together, and we are stronger than you." The shadow let out a final, furious scream. The forest shook, roots cracking, leaves flying, as if the trees themselves were lending their strength. The child's light grew, pure and steady, and Kalen added his own energy, his heart filled with determination, regret, and hope. And then, with a sudden burst, the shadow shattered, dissolving into nothing but smoke and echoes. The forest was still again, but this time, peaceful. The danger had passed, or at least, it had been weakened beyond recognition. The girl looked up at Kalen, her eyes shining with wonder. "We did it?" she whispered. Kalen knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her head. "Yes," he said. "We did it. Together." For a long moment, they stood in silence, listening to the wind whisper through the trees. Softer now, gentle, almost like a sigh of relief. Kalen's heart, which had carried decades of pain and regret, felt lighter than it had in years. "You were so brave," he said. "Your mother would be proud." The girl smiled. "I learned from her. And from you, sir." Kalen's eyes softened. She reminded him of everything he had lost, and everything he could still protect. He realized that the mark was not a curse to fear, it was a bond, a connection, a chance for redemption. Through it, he could honor the past and shape the future. Suddenly, a soft light appeared before them. Faint at first, then stronger. The air shimmered, and a figure emerged, the girl's mother, Leora. She was radiant, almost ethereal, her eyes full of love and relief. "My child," Leora whispered, voice trembling. "You are safe." The girl ran into her mother's arms, and Kalen watched, a mixture of relief and emotion tightening his chest. Leora turned her gaze to him, eyes soft but intense. "You protected her," Leora said, voice steady. "And in doing so, you have redeemed more than just the forest." Kalen bowed his head slightly, humbled. "I could not fail her. Not after everything." The wind shifted again, this time gentle, warm, carrying the scent of spring and renewal. The curse that had haunted Kalen's life for generations was broken, not by power alone, but by courage, trust, and love. The child had awakened its end by facing it with a pure heart. And Kalen had learned that protection was not about fear or domination. It was about sacrifice, care, and connection. Leora held her daughter close, smiling at Kalen. "You are part of this family now," she said softly. "Not by blood alone, but by choice, courage, and heart. The forest knows it." Kalen felt a weight lift completely from his shoulders. For decades, he had walked alone, carrying the burden of a mark, a curse, and a history of mistakes. Now, with the child safe and her mother returned, he understood that redemption was not a distant dream. It was here, alive, and glowing with possibility. The little girl looked up at Kalen. "Will the forest be safe now?" "For now," Kalen said. "But it will always test those it chooses. And we will be ready. Together." Leora nodded. "The bond of the mark is stronger than any curse. You have shown it courage, hope, and love. That is what keeps darkness at bay." Kalen smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with fire. "Then, we have a future to protect. Not just for us, but for everyone the forest watches over." The wind carried their laughter, soft and light, through the ancient trees. The forest seemed to sigh, leaves rustling gently, as though approving, forgiving, and acknowledging the bond that had triumphed. Shadows remained, yes, but they were no longer threats, they were memories. Reminders of trials faced and overcome. The girl's mark pulsed faintly, steady and calm now. It had chosen her, yes, but it had also chosen Kalen and Leora, weaving a connection that could never be broken. It was a legacy of courage, trust, and hope. Kalen looked at the little girl, and then at Leora. He had protected the innocent, faced the curse, and found redemption not through solitude or fear, but through connection, courage, and love. The forest, once dark and threatening, seemed to glow faintly with moonlight and dawn together. Their story, born from fear, shadow, and loss, now had a future, filled with possibilities. Kalen knelt before the girl, placing his hand over hers. "We have survived the darkness," he said softly. "And now, we build a new legacy, one filled with courage, hope, and trust." The girl smiled, her eyes sparkling. "Then, let's do it. Together." And so, as dawn broke over the forest, The Alpha, the child, and her mother stood side by side, united by a mark, a bond, and a love that had grown stronger through trials, shadows, and courage. The curse had been confronted, fear had been faced, and a legacy of hope had begun, a story of redemption, connection, and the courage to face the darkness, not alone, but together. Ending note. The crescent mark glowed faintly on both Kaelin and the child, a living symbol of what had been endured and what had been saved. The forest whispered its approval, and for the first time in centuries, the Alpha knew that he was no longer alone. The past had been reconciled, the present was safe, and the future was theirs to shape together.